And so where are we at? The board hasn't made a final decision on this. Are they leaning a direction? If they weren't leaning towards dam removal, they wouldn't have accepted the money and they wouldn't have proceeded this way. Yeah, they are leaning towards dam removal, there's no question of that. They have not made a final decision because some of those questions they ask have not been answered finally yet. They want answers to those questions before they make that decision. That decision is expected somewhere in the March. Yeah, there it is. We're expecting them to make that decision somewhere in late March, early April. What that's going to coincide with is the environmental document for this, the EA, the environmental assessment, is going to be issued later on this month, and then there's going to be a public comment period on that. And following that public comment period, those comments will be collected, everything will be provided to the Board of Commissioners along with the studies and everything else, and then they will make a final decision. We have a contractor on board, and they're doing well. In fact, they're actually ahead of schedule from where they predicted they'd be at this time. We have enough money to complete the project if that is the board's decision, and everything has to be spent by October of 2010. Now I'll take questions.
This is all deriving from a $5 million grant from no.
Well, starting with that, yes.
And then of that $5 million, how much has been earned already by Sladen on their design build procurement?
Well, they submitted one bill so far for a little over $200,000, and I paid them a little over $200,000. So the bills they've submitted to me right now is around $200,000.
If the board elects not to proceed with removal, a bunch of money is still going to be owed to Sladen, which won't be covered by the grant.
Now, the way that I wrote the contract with Sladen is they will be made whole. The money what they've spent, they're going to be paid for. But they're not, they can't remove the dam until we have all the T's crossed and I's dotted. So for the studies that they've done, the things that they've spent money on, they're going to be paid for that and made whole. And NOAA has also said I don't have to repay them that money. But that was a big concern I had. So if we decided not to remove the dam, do I have to repay the feds? And I don't have to.
Well, we can get money to study the removal, but we can't get money just to remove the powerhouse.
We haven't tried to get money to remove just the powerhouse. Yes, sir.
I have a question. You said that the Board of Commissioners are leaning toward removal at this point, pending further studies on this. But if they decide to remove the dam, what kind of mitigation have they decided to do with this wetland?
And again, that's going to be borne out in we haven't got that ruling yet from DSL on what's required. There's going to be required mitigation that we're going to have to do. There's a permit requirements. In order to do this, in order to get a permit to work in the river and complete this activity, there's going to be permit requirements. So we have to do that. We don't know what that is yet.
Well, you can assume that needs water, right? If the dam is removed, will that not lower the whole level down to that water will not run in there?
There's going to be a change in the water table, no question. One of the things that I showed you before in those first slides. You notice here's the dam location here. And you notice behind the dam, you see a very healthy riparian wetland forest. All the historic photos that we found, all the research that we've done, basically shows that forest and what we have back there today is essentially the same that you have back there in 1890. Not a whole lot has changed in that area over time, except for the fact that the river keeps carving its way back through that area and its course. But that large area behind the dam doesn't seem to change a lot, whether the dam's there or not. Now, is that what the wetlands studies are going to finally conclude? I don't know. But basically what the wetland scientists are telling me, because I'm not a wetland scientist, but what they're telling me is they don't anticipate that whole area to die. They think it will change character somewhat, but a large majority will just stay like it is today.
You mentioned that the flow of water has changed over the years.
Yes.
How much has it changed since the Lost Creek Dam has been in place, which has really changed the water flow in the river?
Well, it hasn't changed hardly at all since 1964. Following 64, that southern channel has been where that dam's been, or that river's been flowing ever since. It hasn't changed, it basically all since 64.
But will that not, once you lower it, remove the dam and lower that flow of water, now, considering what you just said about the water not changing much since the Lost Creek Dam, won't that result in possibly more drying out in that area?
Your guess is as good as mine. You know, I don't think the bottom line is nobody really knows what's exactly going to happen. Is it going to get drier? Well, of course it's going to get drier because the water table is going to drop above the dam. But is the whole wetland going to die? I don't think anybody really knows.
Then I wanted to ask you on the sediment deal. They're probing that, and you said that it's basically water for 3 feet, and that means there's another 30 feet of rock or mud or whatever since the dam went in.
No, just the opposite. It's water for,
I mean, the dam is 38 feet high.
yes, and there's 35 feet of water and 3 feet of sediment. It's almost all water.
All the way down.
Yes, there's 3
And the
feet.
sediment's only 3 feet, and the rest is water below that?
No, the water's on top, and there's 3 feet of sediment below it. That's the thing that surprised us so much.
Well, that means that after they put the dam in, that stuff has come downriver to build that thing up 20-some feet.
No,
3 feet at the bottom, the rest is water. 3 feet of sediment.
3 to 6 feet.
Well, there's water at the top. I know that because I've been there. There's water at the top going down several feet. I don't know how many feet. But I know from the dam down to earth was 38 feet.
that's correct. At the highest point.
So tell me what's in all that 38 feet. They've done all the probing, right? 38 feet down?
Yes. Well, like, again, the 38 feet at the highest point, the majority of that's not 38 feet deep. That's the very highest point on it. But what's in that? Well, the huge majority was water. From all the light color here, there's between 0, so basically when they stick the probes down, they hit bedrock, or 3 feet. So all this area here, and right here is where the reservoir stops. And this is the riffle right here. So the reservoir stops here. All of this right here that's lightly colored, all that has between 0 and 3 feet of sediment, and that's all. The rest of it is just water.
So what you're saying is then the sediment or whatever that's going to wash downriver, the most will be 1 mile and 3 feet deep, which isn't a big deal.
I don't know I didn't measure how far that is, but
Well, you said the sediment's 3 feet,
yes.
and I'm assuming that's down by the dam also.
Everything that's lightly colored is
Right.
3 feet.
It's all 3 feet where it's lightly.
Or between 0 and 3 feet, yes.
Okay, so that can't be too much danger for people below the dam, or the riverbed or spawning areas or whatever. I wouldn't think. I would think it would have been a lot more than that.
Well, and so did we. And we
Yeah.
thought the whole thing would be full, and it wasn't. It surprised us. Yeah. Now, you know, what the impact of that goes, is that sweeps downstream? Because, I mean, even though that's only between 0 and 3 feet, I see it. Even though that's only between 0 and 3 feet, there's still a fair amount of material there. And that means some of that material is going to move downstream. In fact, a fair amount of material.
It's all going to go down.
And so, as that moves downstream, there's, you know, what those impacts are, that's still part of the sediment transport study, and that's not yet completed.
Well, down in Savage Rapids, you know what happened with
I
it.
know exactly what happened at Savage Rapids.
I mean, that was planned, that was all planned, but it went a different direction,
Right,
which caused a nightmare.
yeah. For the
They got
irrigation
fixed.
district, yeah,
I'm just thinking about this when I think of what happened down there, you know, where's all this stuff going to go?
right, yeah. And the sediment transport study will determine that one of the areas that they are saying is, you know, from this point down, a considerable different distance, it's all scoured out. That's all scoured out in bedrock, because you know, you have, as you deposit the material here and it moves over the dam, and the water wants to pick up that material and move it some more. So this area here is completely scoured out, and the historical photos show that there's a lot of cobbles and gravels in this area. So some of it's just going to kind of infill immediately below the dam for some distance. How far is it going to go? The sediment transport studies are going to have to determine that.